Hi, this is Jill from Fabric Garden, and we are ready to start the Radiance block of the month. This is a lovely block of the month from Wilmington Prints, and I'm going to say this is a little bit more intermediate. Some of the piecing is very basic and simple, but there are a few times where we will be doing some more challenging piecing. So more for intermediate or for someone who is ready to try a few little challenges. They're not terrible, but they are not totally beginner level. So in month one, well, let me go back a little bit. Every month for 9 months, you will get a pattern and the fabric to make that month's block or blocks. And I like to get a binder to put my pattern in, and a box or a tote bag to put my kits in. So if for some reason I can't get to my kit that month, I know just where it is. It's in its project box with its binder and pattern, and everything is all where it needs to be. I can get a little out of control in my sewing room. So when I'm doing a block of the month, I like to make sure it really has a spot for everything so I don't misplace anything in the craziness of my sewing room. So this month we will be making one large block, and it's a 12.5 inch block, so it's not super large, and 4 smaller blocks. So I wanted to go over that. So I am going to move the camera a little bit, and so that you can see what I am doing. So I haven't finished this larger block left. I left it like this so I can show you what I'm going to do. This, I call this a square and a square. So we've got a square block that has a square set on point in it. And these can be slightly challenging because sometimes they aren't square. Sometimes the corners get a little wonky, not 90 degrees. So the first thing I did when I was cutting is I made the decision to take the squares that I was cutting that get cross-cut into triangles and cut those larger. That way, when I've made the block, I can trim it to perfection. So on this, the pattern said to cut this square 6 7/8 and then cross-cut it on the diagonal. I cut mine 7 1/4, and you have plenty of fabric to do that, so no worries. And the same thing on these smaller square and a square blocks. The pattern said cut them 3 7/8 and then cross cut, and I cut mine 4 1/4. So that way I knew that I could trim these to perfection and they would be wonderful when I put them into my quilt. So that was, you don't have to do that. You can cut exact. I just know myself, I know it wasn't going to come out perfect, so I made that decision. So I'm going to move the camera down so you can see my block, and I will talk a little bit about what I did. So move the camera. Okay, so these square and a square blocks, I did cut the light fabric larger. And so now I am going to trim these up and to their size. And you know, you could use, these are 6 1/2 inch. You could use a 6 1/2 inch ruler or a bigger ruler. I went through my ruler stash at home, and I actually have this squared ruler that is from Studio 180 Designs. And let me see if I can put something, oh, here we go. I'll put it behind a white page so you can see it. This ruler actually has a section over here for squaring up these kind of blocks. And so on the small block, I did do that. And it actually has, I just better put my glasses on here. It actually has little X's that you line up with the corners. So let's see, I need to move this backwards a little bit so you can see it. But I took the X's and lined one up at each point of the block, and that gives me a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I just quickly trimmed 2 sides of it, and then I turned it around and I lined up the X's again, but I also used some lines on the ruler here to make sure I really am square, and I am. Studio 180, they are for trim tools. I really love them, and I really love also Creative Grids rulers. So there we go. So it is perfect, perfectly square, perfect. I won't cut off any of my points when I sew my 1/4 inch seam, and so I have 4 of those. Now on my big one, that ruler is, it's not big enough. It won't let me do that. So I took my 12.5 inch ruler, and this is a Creative Grids, just regular 12.5 by 12.5 ruler, and it has a white line at the halfway point. And I just lined that white line up from point to point on the block. And so I know I'm right in the middle of the block, and I squared it up and squared it up, and then I flipped it and did that again. And if you're not used to trimming blocks like this, I would recommend that you, instead of taking it right to your rotary cutter, that you might use a pencil or a marking pen to mark it and make sure you like it before you actually cut it with your rotary cutter, because you can't take the cutting back. So the next step in this pattern is just to sew these simple blocks. This is 2 squares and a rectangle, and you're making 4 of these. Now the pattern says to press towards the floral, but I pressed towards the tonal that reads solid. And I did this, let me show you why I did this. This block is going to lay on the corner, and you're going to sew from corner to corner, and then it is going to fold over and create 4 corners on this block. And by pressing towards this more solid fabric, let me see if I can get this close and show it to you, but I can see my stitching lines on this square, and I can see where they intersect. And when I draw my line, my diagonal line, I can see that point and know I am not going to cut the point off. So when I sew on that line, and oops, I've got it upside down. When I sew on the line I've drawn, and I can see where the point of the square is, I know that when I flip it over, I will have this point on the square. I will not have sewn it and gotten rid of my nice sharp point. So that is why I did that. So this month we just really have not a whole lot of sewing to start off with, which is kind of a nice way to start. So that will give you time to get your binder organized, to get a tote bag or box put together. I kind of like when it doesn't start me off making 12 blocks in the first month. So we'll just be making the 1 large, the 4 small, and And that is it. So if you have any questions, if you feel stuck, you're not sure you're doing it right, make sure to give me a call at the shop. It's 916-483-2955. We can either talk on the phone. If you're local, you could drop in. If you are out of state or farther away, if you needed me to look at what you're doing, we could do a Zoom or a FaceTime. You know, we really, here at Fabric Garden, we want you to finish your block of the month. We want you to enjoy it. We want you to have a beautiful quilt. And we know that one of the ways we can help you is that if you get a little stuck, we can help you get unstuck. So make sure you reach out if you need any additional help beyond the videos, because we are here. We are a real place and we are here for you. So thanks for watching, and we will see you in month 2's video.